Good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in to our weekly Wednesday creativity workshop with Adobe Education. My name is Clara Galan, and I work on our Adobe Educator Community programs. And I'm very excited to be joined here today by Channa Messer, who is an instructor, mentor, and educator at the University of Southern California, based in Los Angeles. And she is one of our amazing Adobe education leaders and a part of Partners by Design. So thank you, Channa, so much for joining us today. And we'll go ahead and get started. I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you for having me. And I'm going to turn off the video and share the screen. And I'm going to start sharing right now. And is it sharing? Yes. Yay. So
So I
what I'm
think
doing actually,
actually, oops, sorry, in order for it to be shared, I think you have to keep your video on in the way
oh,
that
I
this
see.
works.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
I think it should
So
be
let me go
okay.
back to me and where are we? Where are we? Okay, so I'll turn, okay, now I'm sharing, right? Share screen and let me see, let me know if it's there. I'm going to first share the brief Acrobat and when you have the title here. And I'm going to tell you the reason I decided to do this session. It's productivity in the classroom, Adobe Photoshop, working with vector tools in Photoshop. And a lot of times the students ask me, why would you just do stuff with vectors in Photoshop? What is the reason? Because we have Illustrator and we can also use InDesign. And I'm telling them that I do it for a few things. First of all, I'm drawing some shape tools that I can bring it back. I can save shapes. I use it for a perfect selection if I need. I use path operation. I use it for special effect. And I also use it for retouching and creating brushes. So I'm doing it for different kind of things. And you can see all the way down, it's a sample of something I'm going to show you what I'm going to do here. It's like a billboard from the movie that was so famous a few years ago. And I created something from the billboard and put some special effect using vector. And for people who want to share stuff like this later on in the classroom, you can share this PDF. I just made a PDF about the vector tools, and I show some samples how I'm going to create selections, how I'm going to do the special effect, the result of the special effect, how am I going to use vector shape later. So I kind of like created that so you guys can share it with your students if you need to. And then I have a whole session here about how to make brushes in vectors in Photoshop, and you have some samples here. And then in the end, about Photoshop brushes in general. So with that said, I'm just going to quit out of that, and I'm going to jump directly to Photoshop. And then you can see everything is already ready for me over here, just to show you what do I do with vectors over here. So vector
So I
tools
think we
are
might have
divided
to
into
share.
three. Share again?
Oh, we might have to share, sorry, really quickly to share Photoshop again, because right now we're seeing now back
Oh,
on your
okay.
camera.
Okay. And do you see it now?
Yep, now I see it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect. Okay. So I'm used to connect and connect, you share. Once you share, you share. So it's kind of like different a little bit. So I decided to open all the files already, so I don't have to search for them. And the first thing I want to just go through some vector shapes. And the vector shapes and vector in Photoshop, I divided into three components. And one component is creating stuff with the vector that Adobe gives you and making it as a pixel. One is a vector shape and one is a path. So how do I get to it? If I go to my toolbox, all the way down, you will see that I have rectangle tool, rounded rectangle tools. These are my vector shapes over here. And these are my selection for the shape. So as soon as I click on it, all the way up in my control, it will be divided to shape, path, and pixels. So when I use stuff with pixels, which I'm not going to even do it today, I have to open a new layer and do everything with the vector shapes, and it's going to be a pixel. I can also copy and paste it from Illustrator, and it is going to be a pixel. And the next thing that I'm going to do here today is working with shapes and paths and the difference between them. So first I'm going to click on the path. So when I work with a path in Photoshop, right away I will go to my path panel and bring it out. And you can see here in the path panel, I already have some paths that I created. Since I'm working with artboards right now, this path that I created is actually corresponds to the final retouched one over here. And the billboard itself, that's the one I'm going to show you what did I do here and how I created the special effect. So if I'm going to go to my layers panel, you can see this is the final retouched. So this is the one that if I zoom into it, you can see that I have some kind of special effect, almost like a neon effect. And this is the billboard, and you can see I have a bunch of effects over here, and I created all the effects using the path tool. So I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to go back to this one. And then I'm going to zoom into it, and this is going to be the one I'm going to work with, and I'm going to go into it and then click on that, and then this path belongs to the other file. So it's very important to understand that, because if I click on it, you can see there's nothing happening here. If I click on the inside frame, nothing happening here. You see, it's really want to go to the other files. So what I'm going to do now, I am going to create a new path. So I can create the path with the pen tool, or I create the path with a rectangle tool. And I'm going to go create it with the pen tool. And then I'm going to go and click all the sides here, and I'm kind of like going to create an outside path. And then you can see right away it says work frame. So I might call it a different name, and I'm going to call it outside billboard. So I'm not going to contradict the other ones. Why am I calling it? Because you can have unlimited amount of paths per file in Photoshop, but one work path only. So if I didn't name it and I do another one, it will take away the current one. And then I might go in and deselect and go back and maybe go and do another one. And yes, I could have done it with the rectangle tool. I just choose to use that. And if I want to fix it a little bit and I didn't do a good selection, you can see that I go to my direct selection tool, which nested next door to the shape tools, and I have a regular path selection and a direct selection. So now I did that, and that's okay. In this case, I'm using a path right now just for special effect. So I can go and open the billboard layers, everything over here, and then I am going to go and click and add a new layer, and then I'm going to call the new layer Neon Effect number 1. There's nothing in this layer at the moment, so I can decide what do I want to put inside the area here. I might actually go back here and use this one as a billboard outside or inside, or I might go in and create a new one from it and then create another one from inside. But this one, I'm just going to use that. And then I'm using it there. I have my effect at the moment. And in the moment, I have the two of them, one next to each other. So I have the two of them. I can go and select only one of them, and that's going to be my outside, and actually copy this one and take it out because I didn't really want to do that. And that's going to be my outside. And then I am going to go in and create another one. I'm going to create a new inside one. I don't think I named the inside one, and I wanted it to be in a separate path. So I'm going to go in and create another work path. You can see I have another work path, and I'm going to call it inside. So once I have it inside now, I'm going to upload the outside path right now. And then I make it a little bit bigger. And gonna go back here and make it a little bit bigger. And then deselect and reselect again. And actually I'm using the wrong tool right now, so I'm going to go to the direct selection tool and I'm going to go and put it over here and match it to that. So now I have it on my layer, but now I want to do my special effect. And you see I have it on a separate layer. So I'm going to go to my brush tool and I'm going to choose a size of a brush. And in this case, I'm choosing, let's say, size 14. I'm not sure I'm going to use that. And I'm going to double click and choose a color. And once I have my path over here, I can basically go back here and stroke the path right away with the brush. And you can see now I have a stroke of that. I don't really want to use that, so I'm going to do Command Z or Control Z, and then I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger. You can change a little bit the hardness. And I'm going to stroke it again, and now you can see I have something that almost looking like a neon effect already. So I'm going to go and upload again the path and create a new layer, and then I'm going to call that neon number 2. And in this time, all what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another color. And I'm going to go to the brush and I'm going to make the brush a little smaller, maybe something like 19 on 20. And then I am going to go in, and once I loaded the path, I'm going to go in and stroke it. And now if I deselect, you start seeing something. You can see some kind of a nice neon effect. One thing I want to just clarify, once you struck the path, which was vector before, now the layer itself, it is pixel. So the stroking is pixel based, but the path, it is vector. So I might go even and bring another one and do another layer. And then I'm going to go in and do maybe another light color. And then go to the brush and make the brush smaller. Once again, I can stroke it again, deselect, and now you can see I have some kind of effect on top of that. I might go to the first one, and then I might go into maybe bevel and emboss, and maybe some kind of a drop shadow. And if I want all the effects to be the same, I'm basically going to go in, hold down the Option or Alt key, and take the effect and move them to the other layer. So all the 3 layers have more or less the same effect. What you see here, I wasn't very careful with my path, so it's not as perfect as the other one, but usually I make it perfect. So if you need to change it right now, you can, but that's going to be a pixel-based effect. I'm going to group it, and I'm going to call that neon. I can do the same to the text. After checking out the text, I'm going to load the selection of the text. So this one is a selection. But once you have a selection on the screen, I can go in again to my path panel and make a work path from it. So now you can see I have a work path based on the selection that I made. If I need to be really perfect, I might go and fix it a little bit. For now, I'm just going to leave it as is, and I might call it titles. Now again, I have the path, and then I can load a new layer. I can go to my brush that it's still there, and I'm going to make that maybe size 10 only, and I'm going to double click and take a bright yellow, and then I'm going to go in and stroke it. So you can see now you have a nice neon effect that it's based on that. So you have some kind of a nice effect. If I turn off the inside of the text, you can see I have just the neon effect. If I turn off the other images, you can see just a frame on your screen. And if I put it on a black background, you really can see that it looks like neon right now. So this is kind of like what I'm using a lot with my path, and I'm going in with I might do a new layer, is on the layer already. I might go in and do a different color. I'm going to change the brush a little bit and then stroke it again. And then if it's too much, of course, I'm going to change it again. But now you can see I have basically two neon effects, one on top of each other. Does that make sense? I want to make sure everybody kind of gets the idea of what I just did. If you have any other questions, let me know. I know students really love this effect. They love to make all kind of marquees and all kind of animals that look like neon and work with that. So I have like actually a sample of that I did with my students, and then we could down. I have the bag, I have the title, but then like the strokes over here, which is the neon effect. So basically, this is what we did over here. I mean, if I don't have the title, and if you can see that, you basically see here, and it looks like metal completely because we chose different kind of colors. And if you're looking at your path panel over here, I can see all the paths that I have, and the one I worked with to create everything was this one that combined the wing and the paths, both of them together. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? So once I have this file, actually, I kind of wanted to show you another thing that I did. I'm not going to do it from the beginning, but I'm going to show you some ideas about how I work with the path and how I create two paths and one path and let them interact with each other, which is really important. So in this case, I basically chose the path and I used it actually only for selection. So I made one here and I created that and I made from this a selection. And you make a selection of path by clicking on the selection over here or command click on it to load it to a selection. And you see I had a selection here and I actually created from that a layer. And if I make a new one right now, you can see this is basically my layer that I have here that can work with the stuff that I have. Then I had the wing. And if I click on the wing from before, you can see I have the wing and I have the bag and I have the wing on top of it. So the same thing, I selected the wing, I copy and pasted it, created a layer mask and put it on top. But originally when I did that, I didn't have a path for the wing and I really wanted to have a path for the wing. So what I did, I loaded the selection of the wing and I created a work path from it and I called it wing. So now I have the wing and I have the bag. I'm going to take away the other one because I don't want you to get confused. You can see the two new ones that I have. And I wanted them to interact with each other to create one path that has the bag and the wing together. When they are like this on the path panel, they don't interact with each other. So what I did, I selected just the path and I'm going to turn it off so you can just see the path. And I duplicated it. So I duplicated the path and I called it bag and wing. And in this case, it's not bag and wing. You can see it's just the bag. Then I went to the wing, selected it with the path selection tool, and went to edit and copy. I copied it, but instead of pasting it anywhere, I went to the bag and wing path and did edit and paste. And then I have the two of them together right now. So now I'm going to select the two of them holding down the shift key. And that's the time that you're going to go all the way up to your control, and you see the path controls. Over here, you can see that you can combine shapes, subtract shapes, intersect shapes, exclude shapes. I'm going to go in and combine the shapes. And if it doesn't work for you for the first time, you're going to go in and click again, and then go in and say merge shapes. And now you can see you have the bug and the wing. So it's basically working like loading selection from the channel panel and doing the channel operation, but in this case, I'm using the path to combine the path. Now, the rest I showed you before, I can go in and load it and basically go in to any kind of brush that I want and go in and stroke it. And you can see I did on purpose a big one. You can do different kind of stuff. You can even fill it. If you don't want to stroke it, you can go in and fill it later with the path with something. So anything, see, I filled the path and I have a pixel-based stuff that I have here. What if I wanted this bag for another project and I wanted it to be absolutely a vector bag? Maybe somebody want to do a die cut with it. Maybe a student wants to put it on a t-shirt and stretch it and put some other stuff on it. Maybe I want to make from it like a shape. So once I have it selected, I don't care that it's filled with anything. I'm just clicking on the stuff and I don't need even, see, I'm selecting it and I'm going to go to edit and I'm going to go in and say define custom shape. And I can go in here and call it bag and wing. And that's it. I have it, I saved it, I can do anything that I want for the next project that I have. So project, and let's say I don't need this one anymore even. I can close that. I'm not even going to save that. I'm going to go back to the billboard. I don't need the billboard anymore. I'm not going to save that anymore. And I'm going to say File New, and I'm going to create a new project right now. And in this case, I'm going to open a small file, and it's completely empty. You see I have no path over here, nothing else. I want to start the project, and in the project, I kind of want to have maybe the bag that I had or some other stuff. So in this case, I'm going to go in to my layers funnel. I might fill it with a color. So I might go even to my gradient and then just fill it with very, very simple gradient so we don't have an empty screen. Now I'm going to go to the second area and I'm going to go into my shape tools. So I'm going to click on the rectangle tool. It still, remember, it is a path and you can still use it as a path if you want. But I'm going to go right away to shape. And at the moment, I'm going to click and drag and create a rectangle. And the rectangle is red because the last time I had a fill, I had a red fill. No harm done. I can go to my properties or I can go all the way up to my options and change the color. So I can change it to any other color. Even I can change that to my gradient. And if I want the gradient to be a little bit different, I can go in and change it from linear to radial to any kind of gradient that I want to do. But once I did a vector shape, you can see I have a rectangle on the layer and it is already a layer. So this one behaves as a layer if I move it around, but also will behave as a shape. What does it mean? If I go to my direct selection tool and click on it, you can see I can go in and change anything that I want. I'm not going to change it yet because I want to take you to my properties panel and show you that I can change my radius of my rectangle and make it like a rounded radius. So I have that and I have a frame. I can even save this frame too if I want, but maybe I don't want it to look like this. I kind of want it to look like when it had like a hole punched into it. So while I'm working with it, if I'm going to go into another rectangle tool or an ellipse tool or polygon tool or anything that I have here. And then all the way up in my control, I'm going to go in and tell it to be on a new layer. It's going to be a new layer. So let's say if I'm going to go and do a new layer, you can see I have a circle over here, and the circle cannot interact with the rectangle at all. I'm just going to leave it and maybe change that for now to another color. So you're just going to see the difference. But now I want to go into this rectangle from before. And once I have it here, I basically want to go in and punch a hole in there. I'm going to turn off this one for a minute. So before doing anything, I'm going to go all the way up to my control, and I'm going to say exclude overlapping shapes. And you can see here I have a little circle and an X on it, and I can go in and create, let's say, another rectangle. In this case, guess what it is? The rectangle punched a hole in there, because this is how I wanted my frame to be. And you're going to say, okay, but what if they're not aligned the right way? I can go in and select the two of them, holding down the Shift key, and I have an alignment tool over here. Can align to the selection, and I can select it and do center to center. If I felt like doing something like this, you can see it moves all the way up there. There's still two independent objects, but I can go in and play with them. And then I can also double click here and create some kind of an effect. And I'm going to do an effect so you can see that if it is on a layer, I can still have an effect. But again, I can still go inside, and guess what? I can do stuff like that. And it's going to tell me once you do that, you cannot make it as live object anymore, which is fine. And you see here, I have a different kind of frame. If I really want to save this frame for later, I can select one, hold the Shift key, call it. And by the way, all the custom shape has no size and no resolution and no color. They're just shapes. And then now I can do anything else that I want, and I have kind of like the shape over here. So remember the bag that I did before? Maybe I want to bring the bag and put it inside here for a reason. So I'm going to go to my custom shapes. And I'm going to go all the way up to my control. And by the way, whoever teaches the ACA exam, there's a lot of questions about defining custom shapes in Adobe Photoshop. So that's something really important for the student to know how to work with it, or either define a custom shape or take a shape and manipulate it and redefine it again to a just the default. And I have my bag over here. In the flyout menu, look what I have there. I have a bunch of other panels if I want to go and bring something. So maybe I want to stay with the animal part because I have a bag. I don't think a bag is an animal, but whatever it is. I'm going to append the animals. I have some nicer animals, more friendly than a bag. But I want to use my bag. So I'm going to click on it. I can click one time on the screen and tell somebody the size that I want to create. Or I can simply click and drag and create any size of bag I want. And yes, when you're using vector in 2019, you do have to hold down the Shift key, as opposed to images that you don't have to hold on the Shift key to constrain aspect ratio. With vector, you still have to do that. So I'm constraining the aspect ratio. I have the bag. It is the same color. I want it to be a different color. Let's making something like that. Let's make him with a little, not an angle, but maybe with a diamond in there. Beautiful bag. I have that. I'm going to go to my layer right now. This is my bag. I can name it. I can double click on it. I can go in and emboss it and everything. And if you're looking at that, I have a vector-based bag. So what does it mean? And it is vector. If I select it and go to my direct selection tool, I can still click here and see all the anchor points that I have and fix it. I can also copy and paste it in Illustrator and use it in Illustrator for anything else that I want. So this is kind of, I created a custom shape for something that I started from a path to make a good selection, then I made it into a selection, then I made from it maybe a path, maybe then I made a custom shape, and now I can start working. So I can go to any custom shape that I have here if I'm going to click back, and then I can load something. So let's say I have the kitty cat. And I have a kitty cat here. And by the way, always going to remember the last color you use. So if you want to go and have it with regular color, you have it red color. You can even add a stroke to it, believe it or not. So now I'm going to add a stroke to the kitty cat, and I have some kind of a kitty cat over here. And you can see it is a regular layer. So I'm emphasizing a regular layer still too. It is vector, but you can add a layer mask to it. You can go in and do a clipping mask, put an image in there. You can do all kind of other stuff or copy and paste it inside Illustrator. It is still vector. So if I'm going to go to my direct selection tool and I want my kitty cat to have little horns over here and the tail has kind of bushy tail over here, I have a new kind of kitty cat. And guess what? I can go in and define a new custom shape. Oh, not a pattern, sorry. I'm going to go in and define a new custom shape, and I'm going to call it kitty number 2. And then I have that, and now I can go in and have that and play with it. So kind of like I wanted to show you the difference between the shapes and the path. The path is not in a layer unless you do an empty layer and you stroke it or fill it or combine it. And more or less you use it for perfect selections. And then the shapes you're using to creating all kind of shapes, and you can create from them different kind of things. You can even bring it to Illustrator and do stuff. But when you copy and paste from Illustrator, by the way, it will ask you, do you want to copy it as a shape, as a path, as a smart vector layer, or as a pixel? So you have an integration between them, and you can do a lot of stuff. So like just to show you, if you go here to your shapes, and let's say you go to ornaments, and I'm going to append the ornaments. These guys, you know who they are. They are now regular ornaments. They used to be Adobe Caslon Pro, the font, but they were done from Illustrator because they were created as outline and then moved in as a shape. And now I can go in and have like a beautiful effect over here, and I'm in Photoshop, and you see it inherits the other effects that I have. Does that make sense? Any questions, since I don't see anything, just my screen? Is any questions, Clara?
Yeah, so there's some comments here. I'm just going back. So first off, we've had a few more people join in, and it's very international. So we have many different countries here represented, which is exciting. There was a comment from Claudia who said, this is back to the previous example you were showing, great to create advertising, merchandising, store displays. That was more on the neon effect. And then Francesca had a question about combining shapes. So that was again from the previous example. She said that's very interesting. And any other, I don't see any other questions right now. It was more of comments kind of in the thread, but I will definitely keep an eye
well,
on
I
that.
can go over the combining. Good, sorry.
Yeah.
I can go over the combining shape. I actually have a sample logo over here. Just I want to talk to you about it, like if you needed to do stuff like that. And let's say I have another one, a light cafe, but I have like, let's say an exercise here that I give to my students, and a regular exercise that I have here. Actually, that's not what I wanted to open. I have a new one over here that I have here. That's the one I wanted to open. And you can see here I have 2 artboards, which I do a lot for demo, by the way, in Photoshop, which gives me kind of flexibility. So in the first one, and then we can combine, and the other one is combined, so that will answer. This is just regular thing. How do you work with the pen tool just to do shapes? So you can do it as a path, or you can do it as a shape. So if I'm going, let's say, to the pen tool or the freeform pen tool or the curvature tool even, I can go in and then let's say this is a straight one. If it's just a path, it will just create a path right now. And from that, I can go in and you see do it straight. And if I want to do really straight line, I'm just going to go hold on the shift key and it's all kind of like regular stuff. Oh, I hold the shift key. It's not really 45 degrees, so it doesn't really work. Oh, again, I'm always doing it. And then shift and I'm closing it. So this is basically working with the pen tool. And if I hold on the command or control key, it takes me to the direct selection tool and I can go and change stuff. And in this case, I decided to go in and do it with the pen tool. So you will see it only in your path panel right now because it's not actually a shape at all, right? It's just a path. And I can use it for a selection and load the selection and select that. But let's say if I wanted to do that and I wanted to create a shape from that, I can decide that I'm going to make it into a shape right away. But if I don't want anything to cover, I might go in and make, let's say, the stroke 1 point, but I'm going to say the fill none. And then I can go in and basically click and, I'm going to go back here and click and drag. And then I can go in and create some kind of a curve and then kind of like change. And then you can see I do another curve over here. And if I go all the way here and do another curve, basically I have a bunch of curves here, but I can go in and click on the selection here and click on it. It's my, and then I can change the selection. I can also change the direction holding down the Option key or Alt key, and then changing this selection. And you see here, I can change it and add some stuff. So in this case, purposely, I didn't do a good selection. But I can also work with that with the curvature tool, which is awesome. Because the curvature tool, I'm just going in and just doing little marks. And now I'm going to double click with the curvature tool and click here and move it up and click over here and do that and click on this one and look what happens. All of a sudden I have a heart and I just used the curvature tool. I don't need to go to the direct selection tool. I don't need to go anywhere. I can go to any area here and move it a little bit. If I don't like something, I can turn it on. I can delete it. And basically, I do have here a shape. So if I went in here and filled it, now I have a shape. Now, of course, I can go in and save it as a custom shape. So in this case, just the shapes, you can go and play with it and do different shapes. There can be a selection or a shape, and I can use the pen tool, the curvature tool, or the freeform pen tool. But I'm going to go into this side, and that's going to be like for Francesca's question of you see here, I did it different ways. I have one like kind of like a copy just of the files that I just did it for practice if you want to practice with it. But if I turn it off, you can see here and you can see here the shapes on and off. They are combined already, but this one, if I can go back here, these are the real shapes. So how did I do that? I went in and I'm going to go and select it. So I can go into my shapes and then I can go into the ellipse that I have there. And basically, I don't think I went in here. Basically, is simple shape is here. Maybe it is this ellipse. I don't even know which one I use, but you know what? I'll make new ones. I'm going to go back and play with it. So new layer. I don't need to do anything with a new layer. I'm just going to go into, let's say, an ellipse tool. And then I'm just going to go in and create an ellipse. And then I'm going to make that with a color, no stroke right now. So now I want to combine them together. If I want to combine shapes, I can go to the another ellipse, let's say, or maybe I'll just do another one, maybe a rectangle. Before doing it, I can hold down, I can go back here, and then I can go in. I'm not going to do it a new layer. I can say combine shapes. and then I am going to go in and I'm going to go on it. So I can also click on combine shapes or hold down the shift key. And you can see here, look what happens right away. They are combined shaped, but they're not. I still go into this one and move it around and change it. If I really want to combine them forever, I'm going to select the two of them and say merge shape components. And now you can see now they are one shape. No longer I can go into the rectangle and make something different from it. It's all as one shape. Does that make sense? Because now if I'm going to go and click on that, that's going to be something for this. If I'm going to click on that, it's going to be part of the same shape. So I'm going to do another one. Let's say I want to go in and do a polygon. So I'm going to click on the screen and you can see it opens right away a new layer. But now I want to go in and subtract something. So I might go into my ellipse tool and then I can go and hold down the Option key or Alt key, and then I'm going to go in and do stuff like that. And look what happened here. I went in and subtracted from that, so I can go and decide I want to subtract it because I want my object to look like something like that. And then I even can select the two of them together and then go back, and I'd rather select it with the regular selection tool and then go in and I can go in and combine them. So I can go back here. If I go here, that's what I'm getting, right? Or if I go back here, this is what you get. And if you see here, it's absolutely kind of transparent that you have there. You just have a shape. I can go to this shape and save it as a custom made shape. But I can also go into my direct selection tool, click inside and see I can still do from it another shape. Now I might go in and edit, define custom shape, and I can do anything I want from it. This is basically another shape. From that, I can create other things. Does that make sense? So you can go and interpolate between them while working with these little guys here. So you combine shape. They have to be kind of like together next to in the same area, and then you select them and combine them together or non-combine them together and create all kind of stuff. So you can see here I have like a sample of a sample logo, and I have here like this one is basically just the idea of the sample logo. So if somebody really wanted to make a shape from it, they can go into the curvature tool or the pen tool or the regular pen tool and basically click and decide to create something. So you see here, I clicked here. I'm actually going to go click and drag. And then if I'm going to create kind of like a curve, you see I'm clicking and dragging a curve. And I'm going to click and drag a curve. And then if I drag a curve here, you can see the direction is not the same. If you hold down the Option or Alt key, it takes you to the Convert Direction tool, which is inside the pen tool, all the way down, Convert Point. But I like to go to it with a shortcut, because then I can continue and continue to create something here. And then I'm going to click here. If I just wanted to click here and close it, I'm going to hold down the Option key, and then I can go in here, deselect and reselect again, and I do have my shape over here. Oh, I don't want to load it to a selection. I can go in and click on that and see I can go in and change it. So I kind of have, let's say, this shape. So let's say I decided to do a shape like this and I want to do a logo that looks like that. So I can go in and fill it with a color. I can tell it not to have any stroke to it. So I have that and it's all okay. And you can see here, it is in your layers panel and I have it somewhere here where I created the shape that I have. So now once I have that, I can go in and duplicate it because this is just kind of like a regular shape. So if I'm going to go in and holding down the Option key, I basically can duplicate it, go to Command or Control T. I can go back here and make it a little smaller and try to fit it more or less, let's say to this size, and then so I can go in here and click on that, and then click on the shape and make it kind of like a different color. And you can see now I can create kind of like the logo that I have. And basically, this is kind of the sample of the logo. And then you can do the name of the company. And in this case, you can even go, believe it or not, you can go to a path. And then I do have a path there. And then I actually have a path all the area here, and this is on the path that you have there. So I think it is the type is on the path, and then this is the path that I typed on it. So you can type on a path in Photoshop. You have to be careful. As soon as you have, let's say, a path or anything, and then let's say I want to go in and type on it, I can go into the type, but you want to make sure you see the tiny little leg over here, and then click on that, and now you can see you have this text on that, and you can go in and play with it. The path is going to be absolutely hidden later. It's just there for you to load it, but then if you don't want a path later, you can go in and not have the path anymore. Does that make sense? So basically, you can do things on a path or without a path. Oh, I did a path in a different area. But whatever it is, I have a path and I drew on the path that I have the stuff. Does that make sense? And the other thing I want to show you, because we're going to run out of time because I have so many little things that I do, I can want to show you something that I use it for actually retouching. That I find out that not a lot of people are using it for retouching. And I'm going to go in, not on this one, I'm looking for the file that I have. And let's see if I have it there. I don't think so. I'm going to do File Open. And then I am going to open the one that I have for retouching. And you can see here, I can go in and let's say I want to retouch an area. So I'm going to zoom in. I made already the path. So I went to a path and you can see I called it retouched. And you see I have it over here. And this is a path because I see kind of like something weird looking in the wall. And I can go and retouch it with a lot of stuff. But in this case, I'm going to go into my layers panel and I'm going to open a new layer. And I'm going to call the new layer Retouch. And I'm kind of loading it to the new layer over here. And then I am going to my healing spot tool over here. And then I'm going to say sample all layers. And I can decide on the size of the brush and everything else that I have. But I'm going to go in now to my path panel again. And after deciding on the tool, I can go back here and I can stroke the path. And if you deselect, do you see here? On, off, on, off. How fast it is. It will take your path, and with any tool that you have, I can basically retouch it with other tools that I have. So what does it mean? If you go back here, I'm going to need to have another path on the screen. Let's say I'm going to go in and click on stroke path just to check it out. You can stroke path with all these tools. Not a lot of people know that they can do it, but I can do it with the healing brush, with the spot healing brush, with a smudge if I want, with a blur, with a sharpen, with a dodge, everything. It will take whatever the effect and take the path that you have and do something to it. Does that make sense? So that's kind of like cool when you have. It's even going to go in and do stuff that I wanted to show you. If I went in, let's say, I called it create a crown, but I don't have any crown brush right now because I wanted to show you how to create the crown brush. But if I wanted to create a crown, And actually, I'm going to do it as a path, path. And I'm just going to go and do that. I just made that. And I'm going to make a new layer. And then I am going to go to my brush and I can see what kind of brushes I have. And maybe I have some kind of dry media brushes that are looking okay, or maybe special effect brushes, or maybe I can even load a fun brush that I have from before. But I'm not going to worry about it here. I'm just going to go into this, to a brush. Let's say I'm going to go in. Of course, I'm going to worry about it because I'm perfectionist and I want to go in and look at, okay, I have a bubble brush over here. It's not the coolest brush that I have here, and it's very, very big. So you see, I don't want to go in and do anything with the brush. So I'm going to go into my brushes, and I'm going to go in and make the brush probably a lot smaller. And then I'm going to go in and do the spacing. So you see, I have some kind of pretend this is something that I want to create on her head. Or what I do, I'm just selecting the stuff. And basically, I'm going to go and stroke the path. So if I have the brush that I have and I chose the right one, or it's the wrong brush over here. And if I go in and I'm going to go into my brush, and then I'm going to stroke the path. I mean, you see, it's a little too much because the brush is way too big than I wanted, but I can go back here and make the brush a lot smaller and go back here and make that something like that and have the spacing of the brush something like that. A lot of time I'll prepare something and I'm going to go back here and stroke. Do you see she has bubbles on her head right now? That could be a flower, that could be anything that you want. And now if you go in and and emboss, you don't want to stroke it, but you can do all some of contours on it and then go in and do something really fun. You can all of a sudden create some kind of a nice little things on it. And what did I do? I used the brush and I stroked it with that. So with that said, I could have gone in to my pen tool and prepared like a little necklace for her. And purposely, I'm going to do it kind of a straight necklace. And I'm going to go back here and I'm open a new layer. And then I'm going to go into the path that I have. And then I'm just going to stroke it with the one that I have. But I have to find back the brush. And you can see now I have the brush. And in this case, the brush was yellow. Let's say I don't want yellow. Let's do it red. And then I'm just going to do that. You see, she has some kind of red looking things there. And I did one on top of each other. So it has some little thing to it. But I can go in and create all kind of stuff. And you can see here that you have a nice looking necklace. Does that make sense? So I could have done different kind of things. So I have some samples to show you if anybody is interested in the samples to see it kind of like another time. I have AI files here, and from these guys, I basically make some kind of flowers or brushes or anything. I do have all kind of vector selection here if you guys want to go. And the last thing I kind of wanted to show you, if we have a moment, is because I mean, we could do one time a session just creating vector brushes. That would be fun because students really like it. In this case, I just want to go in and create some kind of a vector brush. So how can I do that? I can just go into my path and then I can select just the area here. And once I have the path selected, I can go into layer and vector and current path. And you can see I have some kind of a path. It took away the image that I had already. I'm going to unlink it and I'm going to go to I'm going to go in and move it. And you can see here I have a vector path. What am I gaining from that? It's still vector. So if I'm going to my direct selection tool and I can go in here, I can go back here, see, I can fix the path and I can make it really straight. And because it's buildings, maybe I'll go with a vector mask over here. If it is a vector mask, I can also play with, of course, opacity and blending mode. And guess what? You can still add to it a layer mask. So it doesn't mean that you are done. You can just go back here and click, and you can see I have a vector mask and a layer mask together. Okay, we'll open it to Q&A.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you so much for this overview, Chana. And we have a couple comments in here too. Christopher is really excited and is hoping to dive a little bit deeper on brushes in Photoshop. So that could be a whole nother opportunity. But if you don't mind, would you mind sharing your email address or at Exprofile in the chat? Those have further questions. And then Joseph said he hasn't used the curvature tool yet in Photoshop, so that's an exciting new opportunity to try that out. And then Francesca said that she has used it in Illustrator and shared a site to use the curvature tool, or to use the pen tool in Illustrator and shared that link.
Yeah, definitely I use that, or in Illustrator, of course, and this is one of the reasons I love the pen tool so much, because I use Illustrator all the time. But if one day we want to do another session, I'd love to show brushes in Photoshop and Illustrator and the collaboration between the two of them. I go back and forth between the two of them and create tons of brushes. Sometimes I start in Photoshop, sometimes I start in Illustrator and play with the two of them together. So that could be another time to talk about it. But if you guys look at the links that I have in the end of my link about vector, I do have a link to Spark with Photoshop brushes on it. But if anybody wants, I'm happy to also share and send you the assets. And you can put it in the classroom or give your students different kind of exercises to do that. They're really excited once they get into it, because all of a sudden it's another area in Photoshop that they didn't explore before, and all of a sudden they can even do infographics if they want inside Photoshop.
Great. Well, I just posted the link that you had shared previously, so I'll make sure to share that out with the recording. But I'll stop the recording there, and we can just open it up to just a couple minutes of live Q&A. But thank you again, Hannah, so much for joining us. And we look forward to next week. We will have another Wednesday creativity workshop, Wednesday at 12:00 p.m. Pacific time, with Adobe Education leader Tobin Herringshaw. So thank you for watching the recording, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.